4 million vehicles flooding the used car market. Right now, in 2026, the largest wave of off-lease returns, trade-ins, and dumped inventory in the history of the American auto industry is hitting dealership lots all at once. And the people who bought cars at the peak of the 2021 and 2022 shortage market are finding out exactly what their vehicles are worth today. Meet Ryan. He bought a 2022 Ford Mustang Mach-E in April of that year, paid $57,000 for it. The salesperson told him EVs were the future, supply was tight, and if he walked out without signing, that same truck would be $5,000 more by the following month. Ryan signed. 3 years later, he tried to trade it in. The dealer offered him $21,000. Ryan sat in his car in the parking lot and did not move for 15 minutes. He had lost $36,000 in 3 years. Not from an accident, not from flooding or hail or fire, just from the market doing what markets do when the rules change. 4 million cars are being dumped into the used market. The prices on specific vehicles are falling off a cliff, and the consumers who bought at the peak have no idea how bad it already is. So what exactly happened? And more importantly, what does it mean for anyone who is buying or selling a car right now? To understand why the used car market is in the middle of the most significant repricing event in decades, you have to go back to 2021 and understand what the pandemic did to the supply of vehicles in the United States. When COVID hit manufacturing in 2020, automakers shut down plants and canceled semiconductor orders because they expected demand to collapse. Demand did not collapse. It exploded. Americans stuck at home, flush with stimulus checks and low interest rates, bought cars in record numbers. And the factories that had canceled their chip orders could not make enough vehicles to meet that demand. The result? Approximately 8 million fewer cars were built and sold in the United States between 2020 and 2022 than the market would have absorbed in normal conditions. 8 million vehicles that never existed, never got traded in, never became used cars. The shortage rippled through every segment of the market, and prices did something the auto industry had never seen before. Used cars, which normally depreciate the moment you drive off the lot, started appreciating. In July 2022, the average used car listed on Car Gurus reached $32,216. For context, the long-term average before the pandemic was closer to $22,000. A 2019 Toyota Camry with 60,000 miles on it was selling for more than its original sticker price. A 2020 Ram 1500 that had been driven for 2 years was being offered to buyers at a number that would have seemed like a typo in 2019. Dealers stopped negotiating entirely. Market adjustments, the industry term for a markup on top of the sticker price, became standard practice at brands that had never used them. A 2022 Ford F-150 Raptor was selling $20,000 over MSRP in markets where dealers had a waiting list. A Toyota Tundra buyer in Atlanta described being told there was a mandatory $8,500 market adjustment and that if they didn't want to pay it, someone else on the list would. They paid it. Every deal closed. Inventory turned so fast that some dealers stopped listing vehicles on their websites before the car had even been detailed. The auto industry called it unprecedented. Consumers called it unavoidable. And dealers called it the most profitable period they had ever seen. That period is now officially over, and the reckoning is arriving in the form of 4 million vehicles hitting the market at the same time. The question is, who gets hurt the most? Who actually benefits? And what the next 12 months look like for anyone who needs to buy or sell a car. Most people think the used car market works the same way it always did. A car gets traded in or leased out, it comes back after a few years, gets certified, goes on the lot, and buyers get a decent vehicle at a reasonable discount from new. What is actually happening in 2026 is something on a completely different scale. Between 2022 and the middle of 2025, automotive lease penetration for electric vehicles climbed from roughly 15% to 67%. That is not a typo. By March of 2025, 2 out of every 3 EVs being sold in America were being leased rather than purchased outright. And the reason is not hard to find. It traces directly to a loophole in the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal legislation passed in 2022 that was designed to boost EV adoption in the United States. The IRA created a $7,500 tax credit for qualifying EV purchases, but it came with restrictions. The vehicle had to be built in North America using domestically sourced battery materials. That knocked out a large portion of the EV market immediately. Leased EVs, however, were classified as commercial vehicles under the law. Commercial vehicles were exempt from those sourcing and production requirements, which meant dealers could claim the full $7,500 credit on virtually any leased EV, regardless of where it was made, and pass that credit directly to the consumer through lower monthly payments. The result was a 3-year window where leasing a Ford Mustang Mach-E, a Hyundai Ioniq 5, a Volkswagen ID4, or a Chevrolet Equinox EV came with monthly payments that looked almost too good to be true, because for a while, they were. Automakers and dealers were essentially being subsidized to lease EVs at artificial discounts. Consumers who had never considered an EV took leases because the math worked, and when those leases closed, they signed for 3 years and put the car back. They were never really committed to the vehicle. They were committed to the payment. Those 3 years are up, right now. The numbers are what makes this story genuinely alarming for anyone who bought an electric vehicle outright during that window or who currently owns one. J.D. Power estimates that more than 300,000 electric vehicle leases will expire in 2026 alone. That is more than 3 times the volume of electric vehicle lease returns that hit the market in all of 2025. Combined with the broader off-lease wave across all vehicle types, Cox Automotive projects approximately 400,000 more newer used vehicles entering the market in 2026 than in 2025, a 25.7% increase year over year. To put that in scale, 400,000 vehicles is roughly the annual new vehicle sales total for a mid-sized state like Tennessee. All of those vehicles coming back to market in a single year, on top of already elevated inventory, representing some of the same models that were artificially propped up by subsidy-driven lease deals just 2.5 years ago. The depreciation on those vehicles is staggering. The average electric vehicle is now losing roughly 60% of its original MSRP value within 5 years. The industry average across all vehicle types is 45%. Electric vehicles are depreciating 1/3 faster than a standard gas-powered vehicle. And the models with the highest volume of lease returns in 2026, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID4, the Chevrolet Bolt EUV, and the Hyundai Ioniq 5, are the same models analysts at Recurrent and Edmunds expect to see another 5 to 10% additional softening in value during the second half of this year, on top of depreciation curves that have already been brutal. Ryan's $57,000 Mach-E being offered at $21,000 is not an edge case. It is the center of the curve, and the depreciation does not stop at the 2-year mark. Analysts at Recharged project that mainstream electric vehicles, meaning everything except Tesla, will continue losing ground against gasoline vehicles on resale value through 2027 as the supply glut from lease returns compounds. For a buyer who purchased a 2022 or 2023 non-Tesla electric vehicle outright and is now trying to sell or trade, the financial math is brutal. Many of them are in negative equity positions. They still owe more on their auto loan than the vehicle is worth on the open market. A buyer who financed a $48,000 Ioniq 5 in early 2023 with a $5,000 down payment and a 60-month loan at 5.5% still owes approximately $30,000. That same vehicle is worth $22,000 to $25,000 at a dealer today. That is a gap that follows them into their next purchase unless they pay it off in cash or roll it into their next loan, which makes their next monthly payment immediately $200 to $400 higher before they have even chosen a car. What most buyers think right now is that this is great news. Prices are falling. Inventory is increasing. It should be a perfect buyer's market. The reality is more complicated, because at almost exactly the same time that used car inventory is flooding upward, a separate force is hitting the new car market that is pushing prices in the opposite direction. In 2026, federal tariffs on imported vehicles and auto parts have added, according to CBT News analysis, approximately $30 billion in additional costs to the auto industry. The per-vehicle impact breaks down roughly as follows. Imported vehicles, including most Japanese, Korean, and European models, are seeing cost increases of $5,000 to $8,900 per unit. Domestically built vehicles using imported parts and materials are absorbing cost increases of $1,600 to $2,000 per vehicle from steel and aluminum tariffs alone. The average new vehicle in the United States now costs $49,600. Before the current tariff environment, analysts were projecting modest price relief through 2026. Those projections are being revised upward almost every month. For a buyer sitting at a dealership today, the price of a new Honda CR-V, a new Toyota RAV4, or a new Hyundai Tucson is not falling. It is rising. And that creates a very specific, very consequential dynamic in the used car market. Buyers who would normally stretch to buy new are crossing over to used in larger numbers. Demand for quality, low-mileage used SUVs and trucks is actually firming up even as EV and sedan prices crater. The used car market in 2026 is not one market. It is two markets operating by completely different rules, sitting next to each other on the same dealer lot. The Silverado and the Tacoma are holding their value. The Mach-E and the ID4 are not. And the buyer who understands which side of that line they are on has a very different experience walking onto a lot than the buyer who does not. The dealers standing in the middle of all of this are navigating something they have not seen before. From the third quarter of 2024 to the third quarter of 2025, gross profit per used vehicle retailed dropped 9.2%, landing at $1,306 per car. For perspective, at the peak of the shortage market in 2021 and 2022, dealers were averaging $3,000 to $5,000 of gross profit on every used vehicle they sold. They did not negotiate. They did not discount. They put vehicles on the lot and watched buyers line up. The market absorbed whatever price was asked. That is gone. Definitively. We went from not being able to keep anything in stock to watching specific units age through 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. A franchise dealer in the Phoenix market told an industry trade publication. A used Volkswagen ID4 we acquired at auction 7 weeks ago has had its price cut 3 times and still has not moved. We are not losing money on it yet, but we are going to. The floor plan financing pressure is real. Dealers do not buy their inventory outright. They borrow against it, a system called floor plan financing, where a loan sits on every vehicle until it sells. Every day a car sits on the lot, interest accumulates on that loan. At 2021 prices with near zero interest rates, a vehicle that sold in 30 days barely cost the dealer anything in carrying costs. At today's interest rates, with specific vehicle segments sitting for 60, 90, or even 120 days, those carrying costs compound quickly into losses. The margin that seemed healthy at acquisition becomes a loss at day 90. Dealers who stocked aggressively on electric vehicles and sedans heading into 2026, betting on continued price stability, are the ones feeling it most, sharply right now. Before the lease loophole fully expires, it is worth understanding exactly how much money flowed through it, because the scale of what was artificially propped up explains the scale of what is now unwinding. Between 2022 and 2025, nearly 1 million EV leases were written under IRA lease loophole conditions. 1 million transactions, each structured around a subsidy that made the monthly payment look far lower than the vehicle's actual cost would suggest. Automakers knew it. Dealers knew it. Many of the consumers who took those leases understood that the payment was artificially low and that they were essentially renting an EV at a discount they could walk away from in 36 months. Walk away they did. Lease return rates for EVs during this period significantly outpaced those for gas-powered vehicles. Consumers who bought their vehicles outright at the peak of the shortage market in 2021 and 2022 are still stuck with them, watching their values erode. But consumers who leased during the loophole period were always going to return the vehicle, no matter what the market did. The lease structure gave them a guaranteed exit. The market is now processing that exit at scale. Almost every EV on my lot right now is a lease return, one used car manager at a large franchise dealership in the Southeast told Automotive News. They come back in great condition, low miles, good shape, and I can't move them at the prices we need to move them to make money. Every week I'm adjusting prices downward to stay competitive with the 6 other Mach-E's that showed up at auction. 1 million leases written. 1 million vehicles coming back. And the market for those vehicles was built on subsidized payments that no longer exist, serving buyers who were renting for a payment, not purchasing because they wanted that specific vehicle for the long term. There is a category of buyers who should stop reading this and go shopping right now. They are the ones for whom 2026 is genuinely one of the best years in recent memory to buy a used car, not in the used car market broadly, but in a very specific corner of it. Used EVs under 3 years old from the highest return models are carrying price tags that make no logical sense compared to what they cost new, even accounting for the subsidy-inflated lease structure. A 2023 Hyundai Ioniq 5 that's stickered new at $47,000 can be found in the used market today at $26,000 to $30,000. A 2023 Chevrolet Bolt EUV that listed new at $28,000 is appearing at auction and on dealer lots at $16,000 to $19,000. A 2023 Volkswagen ID4 that's stickered at $43,000 is available used for $21,000 to $25,000. These are not small discounts. On the Bolt EUV, that is roughly 40% off in 2 years. For a buyer who can charge at home, drives primarily within metropolitan areas, and is comfortable with the charging infrastructure in their region, the value calculation on a certified pre-owned 2023 EV in mid-2026 is genuinely compelling. You are buying a vehicle that was built with 2023 technology, has already absorbed the steepest portion of its depreciation curve, and in many cases still has remaining battery warranty coverage. But here is what you need to know before you go. The vehicles that are not participating in this price compression are trucks and mid-size SUVs. A 2023 Ford F-150 with 35,000 miles is not discounted. A 2023 Toyota 4Runner is not discounted. A 2023 Chevrolet Tahoe is not discounted. Those segments are being supported by the tariff-driven wave of new car buyers crossing over to used, and demand is firming prices up rather than pushing them down. If you need a truck or a full-size SUV, 2026 is not the buyer's market you might have read about. It is a different market entirely. What segment you are shopping in determines everything about the deal you can get. The tariff impact on the new car market also has a specific effect on the most popular model on American roads. The Toyota RAV4, consistently one of the best-selling vehicles in the United States, is partially assembled using foreign components in a way that makes it susceptible to tariff cost increases. Same for the Honda CR-V, the Hyundai Tucson, and most Korean and Japanese crossovers that dominate the family SUV segment. Buyers who plan to replace their aging crossover with a new one this year are doing the math and finding that a 2-year-old version of the same vehicle with 25,000 miles costs roughly $20,000 to $22,000 less than the new equivalent. That math is sending buyers in exactly the direction you would expect, and used crossover supply is tightening as demand accelerates. Prices in this segment are not crashing, they are firming. The question that most people in the market are not asking, but should be, is where used car prices go from here. Because the factors at play in 2026 are pushing in two different directions simultaneously, and the answer is not the same for every segment. For EVs and sedans, prices almost certainly continue to soften through the back half of 2026 and into 2027. The lease return wave does not peak until late 2026, with some analysts projecting the highest volume of EV returns arriving in Q3 and Q4 of this year. That means additional inventory arriving into a market that is already absorbing more supply than it expected. Analysts at Recharged and Edmunds are projecting another 5 to 10% price decline on the highest volume EV return models before the wave crests. If you are buying a used EV, waiting 3 to 6 months may save you another $1,500 to $3,000. If you are buying a used EV this month because the price is already extraordinary and the vehicle meets your needs, that is also defensible. The key is that you are making the decision with full knowledge that the trajectory for these vehicles is still downward, not because the vehicles are bad, but because supply is simply overwhelming demand at current levels. For trucks, full-size SUVs, and hybrids, the tariff pressure on new vehicles is keeping used prices firm and in some cases pushing them higher. A buyer who needs a 2023 Toyota Highlander hybrid and is waiting for prices to fall the way EV prices are falling will likely be disappointed. The dynamics supporting those segments are structural, not cyclical, and the tariff environment is not resolving quickly. For dealers, the margin compression on used vehicles is going to intensify before it gets better. Every month of 2026 brings another wave of lease returns that need to be priced, marketed, and sold into a market that is simultaneously dealing with tariff-driven new car price increases, sending buyers to the used lot in larger numbers. The dealers who stocked smartly, who waited toward late-model trucks and hybrids and kept their EV exposure measured, are positioned reasonably well. The dealers who chase the EV boom are working through a lot rotation that is taking longer and costing more than their models anticipated. 4 million vehicles. That is where we started. And after walking through the IRA lease loophole that created 1 million artificial EV transactions, the $36,000 loss Ryan absorbed on his Mach-E that he signed for at the peak of the shortage market, the $30 billion in tariff costs that are now pushing new car buyers away from new and into used, the $1,306 gross profit per used vehicle that represents a 9.2% collapse from just 12 months ago, and the 5 to 10% additional softening still projected on high-volume EV return models, we are back to the same number. 4 million vehicles entering the used market in 2026, not scattered evenly across all segments. Concentrated, clustered in the exact models that were most aggressively leased during the loophole window: the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID.4, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Chevrolet Bolt EUV, all of them coming back, all of them being repriced, all of them sitting on lots that are also absorbing tariff-panicked buyers looking for an alternative to a $50,000 new CR-V. Ryan is still driving his Mach-E. He did not take the $21,000 offer. He told a friend the dealer was lowballing him. 3 other dealers quoted within $300 of the same number. He decided to wait anyway. What he is waiting for is unclear, because the model projecting his vehicle's value in 12 months does not look better than today. But waiting is a strategy. It is just not always the right one. The used car market right now rewards people who know exactly which segment they are in and what the supply dynamics for that specific segment look like. It punishes people who walk onto a lot with a general sense that prices are coming down and do not know that the truck they want is in a completely different market than the EV that is 40% below sticker next to it. The cars are being dumped, millions of them. The prices on the right segment at the right moment represent some of the best buying opportunities this market has produced in 5 years. The prices on the wrong segment, bought without understanding what is propping them up, represent the next version of the story Ryan is still living. The market has shifted. The information gap between buyers who understand where it shifted and buyers who don't is worth thousands of dollars on every transaction. The question is which side of that gap you end up on when you sit down at the desk.